And while it's a natural survival mechanism, it can be easily manipulated. Think of how often you've seen an online post with thousands of likes and comments and assumed it must be true or important. That's not reason speaking, that's a psychological shortcut, and it's one of the reasons collective stupidity spreads so easily.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here of Tell Me I'm Wrong. So today we're going to be covering the decline in critical thinking. Why I kind of think we're declining a little bit. That's what we'll be kind of covering over here is what I think, why I think we are declining. Oh my God, that tongue twisters today. I'm almost still under the weather, so forgive me a bit. This ties in with the other topics we've kind of been exploring, though. Critical thinking along with IQ, hypotheticals, all the other ones we've been doing. So I think this just is we'll probably do like one or two more on these that I'm kind of thinking, and then we'll start going into other type of stuff with this. But I wanted to set the baseline of this first, because as I start covering other topics, someone might be like, hey, why'd you say this person's retarded? Like, isn't that mean? Isn't that bigoted of you? No, I mean the word retarded. We've covered this. There's a legal definition for it. That's why I use that word. Yeah, I'm not sugarcoating nothing. It is what it is. Examples of critical thinking and stuff that I'm seeing nowadays in Canada and stuff would be, like I said, I'm a Canadian here, as you can tell up over there. I'm not from Montreal, though, so don't hate on me, guys. Don't hate on me. A little bit of a better part of Canada. But examples I can use as a Canadian would be like our Canadian eco rebates and stuff. They wanted to try to make everyone invest in, I think it was like solar panels was the idea. They were trying to give everyone all these, like the carbon rebates and stuff, and like, be more eco-friendly. Where did that money go towards that you just sent back? Like, I don't even know, millions and millions of dollars back into the economy. Like, it did not go into any eco stuff. It either went to the local drug dealer or it went into the local gas station to fuel their car with fuel. None of eco shit. Say, for example, kind of almost similar but slightly different, how we cry about climate. Yet we would do more impact for the world and like globally and everything if we actually unleashed our oil and sold it. Our oil's definitely a lot cleaner than places like over in India. I think the last metric I heard was, I think if we sold our oil alone to India, we would lower global temperatures by, I think it was like 3 degrees or something. You know how much we would lower temperatures if we annihilated Canada off the map right now? If we just went, every Canadian stopped to exist? Zero. So all these little bullshit things they're pushing for, like, oh, Canada needs EV vehicles, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to do nothing. Go look at the data's out there. It won't do nothing. It's retarded. And that's when I say the word like that. There you go. Promoting things like the alphabet agenda. If you can't even tell me what a man is or what a woman is, don't tell me you know anything about policy. I'm sorry. Like, you have no critical thinking ability at that point, right? Like gun rights / I call it more so gun control, up here in Canada, because you really don't have any rights to nothing, and whatever you do have, they want to take every last bit of it away. So, to me, I think it's calling it gun rights is pretty much a joke, especially after yesterday's video. But, yeah, I think these are just clear examples in our day-to-day stuff. We can obviously go over like housing and food or whatever, like all these other different issues, the way they're handling the trade war from the Canadian perspective or whatever, blah, 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 blah. It all ties to critical thinking, though. And one thing I do want to point out is, yeah, I know, like, I'm going to use a lot of videos to reference my points and try and make my points, or maybe even just explore things and stuff. But I'm never going to sit there and be like, video said this life. Video might be able to maybe word it better than me, or might have some better pictures or illustrations of what I would be able to develop, so that's why I could utilize it. But I still have my own worldview apart from this video. This video is merely just reinforce, like helping, I don't want to say reinforce, but give perspective to someone else better than I could put it in perspective. So I want to always keep that in mind. When we're showing this, it's not like I'm like, oh, look, their video must be true. No, like I have my own worldview based upon this, and this is just what I'm using to kind of, I guess, perpetuate that message. So without further ado, we'll get into the video. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and yeah, we'll see if you guys like it.
Imagine waking up one day to discover that most people around you no longer question anything, that the world has become so loud, so fast, and so saturated with information that the human mind, once a powerful tool for inquiry, discernment, and growth, has dulled into passive acceptance. Think about that. What happens to a society where critical thinking vanishes, where the ability to reason, challenge, and reflect is replaced by instant reactions, surface-level opinions, and collective echo chambers? In this video, we are going to uncover the disturbing truth behind the disappearance of critical thinking and the dangerous rise of what some philosophers now call collective stupidity, a phenomenon where masses of people adopt shallow thinking, blindly accept narratives, and surrender their intellectual independence without even realizing it. And at the end of this journey, we will uncover the most powerful and urgent truth of all, one that could determine whether we reclaim our minds or lose them entirely to a system designed to keep us comfortably numb. But before we dive deep, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share your thoughts in the comments. The content you're about to experience may challenge your perceptions and even shake the very foundations of how you see the world. Share this with those who dare to think and who still believe that truth is something worth seeking.
Eve to me is basically
Ads.
Uncomfortable truth. Thinking is hard, and in today's world, it's often discouraged. The modern environment doesn't reward contemplation. It rewards speed, emotional response, and conformity. And this isn't by accident. From algorithms that feed you only what you want to hear, to educational systems that prioritize memorization over exploration, society is actively conditioning us away from critical thought. The philosopher Noam Chomsky warned us about this decades ago. In his analysis of media and propaganda, he explained how power structures rely on what he called the manufacturing of consent. In other words, when people are trained to consume without questioning, to agree without understanding, they become easy to manage and even easier to deceive. Critical thinking, once considered a fundamental human skill, is now seen as inconvenient. It gets in the way of outrage culture. It slows down online debates. It challenges ideologies. It dares to ask, but is this really true? And in a world obsessed with being right, simply asking that question is...
Like, even before I started recording this video today, I love just kind of like scrolling through like some different social media and just seeing some of the ridiculous things on there. I just find it very interesting to see, because again, it's like I'm looking what's actually out there in the world. And I was just looking at an argument actually like 5 minutes before recording this. And basically, like, someone was trying to make an argument, someone made a very good counter argument, and rather than fighting the argument, they instantly are just like, oh, you must be this, or you're this, and they just instantly start with the personal attacks. And it wasn't even just one, it was like a whole list of 10 of them. And it's like, bro, tell me you lost the argument without telling me you lost the argument here. Like, you're just raging like a little 5-year-old right now. Like, it's just clear lack of critical thinking.
Seen as dangerous. But how did we get here? The problem runs deep. One of the key drivers is the information overload we all experience daily. According to neuroscientist Daniel Levitin, the average person today processes 5 times more information per day than they did just a few decades ago. We are
And the best part about it too, was not only were like the irony I found in this post, and again, once you just have the ability to think, you can just see it right in front of you. But it was just so hilarious because he's sitting there, and again, he loses the argument, and then he proceeds to start calling the other guy like, he's like, oh, you must be a pedo or blah blah blah, all the normal accusations, right, that everyone starts throwing out nowadays about everyone, and And then the guy was like, posted a meme like, this guy must be retarded. Instantly, the guy's like, can we not use that word, please? Like, let's not use the word retarded. It doesn't sound like, it's like instantly starts tone policing him. It's like, bro, you didn't want to fight the actual argument. You started personal insults, calling him all these things that you had no evidence to support. And then he simply says you're retarded, but some me about saying you're like, and then you're gonna tone police him on, like, bro. Like, come on, where is, like, it's just, and it was so funny because it was like the whole argument was kind of like, whether these people should almost be institutionalized. I guess, like, you're a prime example of what should be institutionalized.
Bombarded with notifications, messages, breaking news, opinions, ads and updates every waking moment. Our minds were not built for this kind of input. When the brain is overwhelmed, it shortcuts. It starts to rely on mental habits, cognitive biases, and groupthink to navigate complexity. Rather than evaluate ideas critically, it looks for cues from others, especially from peers, influencers, or perceived authorities. This is called social proof, and while it's a natural survival mechanism, it can be easily manipulated. Think of how often you've seen an online post with thousands of likes and comments, and assumed it must be true or important. That's not reason speaking, that's a psychological shortcut, and it's one of the reasons collective stupidity spreads so easily. Not because people are unintelligent, but because they're being conditioned to follow signals instead of reason. Another disturbing trend is the decline of reading, especially deep reading. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolf describes how our brains are being rewired.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan in reading. I'll do it if I have to, but I much rather watch like a video of somebody, like, even if they were just reading it for me. More like an audiobook, I guess, would be the right term. I'm down to listen to the story. I'm down to hear it. I love to learn. It's just, and again, I'm a pretty good reader too. I always have been. Like, my grades in reading and everything were always very exceptional. So it's not that I can't like read the words or understand or anything. I definitely can. It's just I don't know. Never found an interest. Like, I got a couple books over there and stuff. I've dabbled through them, but I'd much rather just get hands on and dirty and try it.
By digital media, we now skim more, jump between tabs, and struggle to maintain focus on longer texts. But here's the catch. Critical thinking requires sustained attention. You cannot analyze, reflect, or truly understand if your attention span is constantly fractured. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read an entire article without checking your phone? When was the last time you paused after hearing something provocative to think rather than react? These small habits, once common, are vanishing. The late Carl Sagan.
One thing I try to do, and I mean, not everyone's going to be able to do this, but I try to just put something interesting on before I go to bed, and I like falling asleep to noise. Some people can't fall asleep to noise. Fair enough. Maybe not the thing for you. Maybe audio books while you're working, or you can find something. But for me, my thing is always, I want to put something on while I'm going to bed, so not only am I taking it in, but I have time to digest what I'm taking in. I'm not going to jump out of bed and start posting stuff online and going crazy with it. I want to take it in, and I want to see, like, what's my thoughts on it. My first thought might be a little bit crazy. By the time it comes to morning, I might have completely 180'd on my opinion or something, or I might have thought about a few other things, right? And it gives you time to go down that rabbit hole and explore, like, is this a legitimate thought? Rather than just instantly reacting to it and absorb some of that information. I think that's one thing that I do, and I find that helps me on a daily basis and stuff. Like, differentiate my opinion from stuff and all, and give me time to analyze things.
One of the great minds of the 20th century once warned, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." His concern was not just ignorance, but the erosion of the ability to think critically about the systems we depend on. In a world full of opinions, hot takes, and ideological warfare, the greatest rebellion is the quiet act of thinking clearly. But the problem isn't just technological or educational, it's also emotional. Critical thinking is uncomfortable. It forces us to admit that we don't know everything. It challenges our egos. It can lead us into cognitive dissonance, where our cherished beliefs clash with new evidence. And in a culture that values certainty, confidence, and identity above all, this is deeply threatening. So instead of thinking, we defend, we retreat into our tribes, we repeat mantras, we cancel, we avoid, we memorize slogans instead of engaging in dialectic, the kind of honest Socratic dialogue that has powered philosophical evolution for millennia. What we are witnessing now is not just a decline in thinking, it's a social shift toward mental laziness. And yet, the consequences are devastating, because when people stop thinking, they stop questioning. And when people stop questioning, they become vulnerable to manipulation, to propaganda, to fear. And the question we must all ask is this: who benefits when a population no longer thinks for itself? Stay with me, because what comes next will uncover just how deeply these forces are woven into our daily lives, and why reclaiming our capacity to think is not just a personal task, but a moral responsibility. To understand the roots of this collective decline, we must look beyond the surface and trace how certain systems have evolved, not to nurture critical thought, but to suppress it. Let's begin with the education system. John Taylor Gatto, an award-winning teacher and outspoken critic of traditional schooling, argued that modern education does not exist to create independent thinkers. In his words, the truth is that schools don't really teach anything except how to obey orders. Gatto claimed that compulsory schooling was designed during the industrial age not to enlighten students, but to prepare them for factory life, predictable, obedient, and non-disruptive. Think about that. Instead of teaching how to think, we are taught...
And when you think about it, when everything was designed, that's what the world was based on, right? So makes sense. Like, that's all we really did was factory life, all of that. But again, as innovations have come and technology's advanced, like they just said, we haven't kept up with it. This is the same example I used, I'm pretty sure it was in the IQ video, right? Like, sure, think of, 100 years ago, no caveman, or like, not caveman, but 100 years ago, but you get what I mean? Like, society 100 years ago wouldn't fathom, they would think like an iPhone is alien technology. To us, most people can at least turn on an iPhone, maybe hit the phone button and stuff. That would seem unfathomable to them, right? But do most of you know how to like take apart your phone or the inner workings of the phone? Like, how much do you really know about your phone? So in the scale of that, you really don't know much. Most people don't, at least. I shouldn't say you or that, but most people don't. So in terms of how much do you know, you don't know very much typically. Is I guess the point. So despite us evolving, we're not really keeping up with the smarts.
What to think? From early ages, children are evaluated not on the originality or depth of their thoughts, but on their ability to memorize and regurgitate. Conformity is rewarded, curiosity is often treated as a distraction, and over time the message becomes clear. Follow the rules, color inside the lines, and don't ask too many questions. This pattern doesn't end in school, it only intensifies in adult life.
What defines a luxury river cruise?
People always say there's no such thing as a bad question. I've seen quite a few of them, though. I'd beg to differ.
Workplace, in media, even in our friendships, we learn that speaking out, questioning consensus, or holding unpopular views can cost us. The fear of social exclusion, of being labeled difficult or controversial, is often enough to silence even our most pressing doubts, and so we stay quiet. But silence over time becomes complicity. The psychologist Erich Fromm observed this in his book, Escape from Freedom, where he explained how many people secretly want to surrender their freedom of thought, because true freedom comes with responsibility. And responsibility can be terrifying. Thinking for yourself means you can no longer blame others for your ignorance. You can no longer take comfort in the crowd. You must face the uncertainty of truth, and that, for many, is too great a burden. So instead, we choose comfort. We choose distraction. We choose simplicity over complexity. And in doing so, we become easier to control. Social media has accelerated this problem to unimaginable levels. What was once a space for global connection has become a battlefield of opinion wars, outrage cycles, and algorithmic manipulation. Every platform is designed to keep you scrolling, reacting, consuming, not thinking. You are nudged constantly toward content that confirms your beliefs.
It depends what you tailor it to be fair. I'd say mine's pretty diverse, you know. I try to watch stuff from both sides. Not even just political. I try to watch things involving like space, maybe some video game stuff. Watching like fishing, hunting, camping, stuff about this mutt, you know, like so much different stuff, right? It doesn't have to just sitting there consuming one thing isn't gonna, broaden your view that much.
You are encouraged to
Also, keep in context, just because like the best way to put it, I guess, is just there's also the world outside of your country, right? Just because your country does something a certain way, just because you look at something a certain way, doesn't mean other people will as well. Maybe you might have the same thing drastically different somewhere else. You have to keep that in mind too. Not saying you need to agree with it, not saying it's right or anything, but it's just these things exist. Gotta at least be acknowledged.
respond instantly, emotionally, and often angrily. The platforms reward engagement, not truth. They thrive on division, not understanding. And in the middle of all this noise, the voice of reason is drowned out. Thoughtfulness appears slow, weak, even irrelevant. Why reflect when reacting is faster and earns more likes? Philosopher Marshall McLuhan foresaw this in the 1960s. He warned that the medium is the message, meaning that the way we receive information changes how we think. Today's mediums encourage speed over depth, outrage over nuance, and certainty over humility. Even truth itself has become distorted. In the age of misinformation, what is true often becomes less important than what is viral. People no longer evaluate the merit of ideas based on evidence or logic. They judge them based on how many people agree. This is the tyranny of the majority in its most dangerous form. Not political, but cognitive. So where do we go from here? We begin by asking better questions. Questions that challenge the status quo. Questions that demand real answers, not slogans or statistics stripped of context. What are you being told to believe? Who benefits from that belief? What assumptions lie beneath your certainty? How often do you seek out opposing views, not to attack them, but to understand them? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary, because the antidote to collective stupidity is not just intelligence, it is courage. Courage to be wrong, courage to learn, courage to admit that you don't know, and to start the journey of knowing anyway. Socrates, one of the earliest champions of critical thinking, famously claimed, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." This was not self-deprecation. It was an invitation to stay curious, to keep asking, and to remain intellectually humble in the face of a vast, mysterious world. And yet today, humility is rare, certainty is worshipped, arrogance is mistaken for wisdom.
Writing a book is hard.
I know when it comes to me, so I'm going to do another quick little rant here. I know I've been kind of ranting quite a bit, right? But I know for me, honestly, I didn't really grow up with my family. I didn't grow up with any type of, per se, like father figure around to really teach me most things most younger boys would learn growing up via their father, right? Even like by the time I got my first car, I honestly didn't even know how to change a tire or anything, just simple things. I've learned a lot more since, but again, it's taken a lot more work, a lot more effort. It's taken the motivation, it's taken the willpower in order for me to go out and go do these things, right? And it's not only just to benefit me and stuff, but again, as a parent, I need to be able to pass these skills on to my son. I feel like it's an important thing. I pass them on to him and make sure he has these abilities and stuff, because it's lacking so much in society. Oh, shit.
Standing. Everyone wants to speak, but few want to listen. The irony is that true thinkers are often quiet, observant, reserved.
And I will say, sorry, one more thing. I know I normally hype myself up and I'll be like, yeah, I know I'm a smart ass. I know what I'm talking about. And I come off with maybe a bit of, like cockiness about me and stuff. And I'll admit that may be the way it comes off or people could perceive me. But I can also know, like, I'm not going to sit there and tell myself I'm crap all day, right? And try to beat myself, or else I'm never going to get better, right? So that's my form of, making sure I'm pushing my bar for myself. But I can also stay humble and realize, say, this summer we started learning about like fishing a lot more. And I think about like 2 weeks or so, we're hopefully going to go get we're going to go do our gun safety courses and stuff out here. Hopefully start doing stuff like that and getting out there hunting and stuff. Like, it's taken effort. It's taken, time to go research, time to go learn things. Nothing comes easy, but if you want to learn these things, the answers are out there. Just try. It's that easy.
They know that wisdom grows not from noise, but from silence, from contemplation, from deep engagement with complexity. And this is precisely why critical thinkers are often outnumbered and ignored. In a culture that rewards speed and spectacle, the slow process of thinking stands little chance. But it must not be abandoned, because once you give up your ability to think for yourself, you are no longer free. You are a puppet, your strings pulled by forces you do not see. And let us be clear, those forces are not abstract. They are economic, political, and cultural. They are...
Sorry, that's the one thing I was going to say. There was like, sorry, I was like brain farting there for a minute. But even though have that cocky attitude about me at times, I could still be humble in the presence of somebody else and know that they're smarter than me. I'm not like, I only started, say, like that fishing example, like this year. There's obviously people way smarter than me. I would never try to sit there and be like, let me tell you how it is, sir. No. When I go down to the docks and stuff, if I see some old timers sitting there, like, what are you doing? You we'll strike a conversation or something. And it's like, hey, what's your mindset? Why are you doing it this way? Does it work? How many years have you been doing this? And it's like, maybe you'll learn something. Don't let your arrogance or just don't let self-doubt or anything fool you. Like, if you go into a conversation genuinely willing to learn and ask and be sincere, most people are usually more than happy to share their knowledge and stuff with you and strike a conversation. Fishing was a great example. Go to any dock and just strike a conversation with a fisherman. I'm not religious, and they know it. And there's a Bible group that comes by all the time by the docks and stuff. And every time they come by, look, how's your day? How's you and your boy? How's everyone? They've seen my family there. How's your family doing? I don't have to believe in it. I don't have to, whatever. It's just, yeah. It's that easy, man. Just go strike a conversation with someone and just be sincere. It's not hard. Be respectful.
The companies that profit from your addiction to mindless content, the politicians who rely on your emotional reactions, the institutions that depend on your unquestioning obedience. But when you reclaim your mind, everything changes. You become harder to manipulate. You begin to see through the illusion. You stop being a passive consumer of ideas and become an active seeker of truth. And in that act, however small, you light a fire that has burned through history in philosophers, scientists, revolutionaries, and truth-tellers who refuse to stop thinking. So the question now is this: will you do the same? Stay with me, because in the next segment, we will dig deeper into the psychology behind collective thinking. You'll discover why even the most intelligent people fall into these traps, and how the brain can be tricked into believing what it wants to be true instead of what is true. We're not done. In fact, the most important revelation is yet to come. To truly understand the rise of collective stupidity, we need to explore the battlefield within, the mind itself. Despite our faith in logic, the truth is that the human brain is far more emotional than it is rational. We like to believe we make decisions based on facts, but the reality is far more complicated. In his groundbreaking work, Thinking Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman showed that our brains operate using two systems, one fast and instinctive, the other slow and deliberate. The fast system is quick, automatic, emotional. It jumps to conclusions, makes snap judgments, and conserves energy. The slow system is thoughtful, analytical, cautious, but it requires effort.
We have hundreds of high-yield review videos that will teach you all the basics.
Here we got invest in premium here.
Is the issue. In our high-speed, always-on world, most people are stuck in fast mode. There is simply no time or will to slow down and think deeply, so we rely on heuristics, stereotypes, and mental shortcuts that feel right but are often wrong. This is fertile ground for mass manipulation. Politicians, marketers, media outlets, they all understand how to exploit our mental shortcuts. They package complex issues into simple binaries. They use emotionally charged language to bypass reason. They prime us with repeated narratives until we accept them as truth, not because we verified them, but because they feel familiar. And the danger is, once we accept something as true, our brains begin to defend that belief, regardless of evidence. This is known as confirmation bias, and it's one of the most powerful cognitive traps in existence. Take a moment to think about your own beliefs. How often do you seek out evidence that contradicts them? How often do you truly listen to opposing arguments rather than preparing your counterpoint? If you're honest, probably not as often as you think. And that's not a flaw. It's human nature. But it becomes a problem when we're unaware of it. Another key concept is groupthink, a psychological phenomenon where the desire for harmony or conformity in a group leads to irrational or dysfunctional decisions. It's been documented in everything from corporate disasters to historical atrocities. People silence their doubts for the sake of unity. They choose consensus over truth. Social psychologist Irving Janis, who coined the term, found that even highly intelligent, well-intentioned people can make catastrophic decisions when they suppress dissent and avoid critical evaluation. Why? Because challenging the group feels unsafe. Because
There was an interesting social experiment I seen done, actually, a few of them focused around this topic here. One of them is they were in a classroom and they had, I think it was like 5 or 6, students, who were the test subjects there, and they sat them in at desks and made like a little fake classroom kind of setting. And the prop was behind the door, like off in the corner there was a door, and they started having smoke coming under it, and they wanted to see who would respond to it. And they were all in the middle of, like, they were supposed to be focused taking their tests like individually or whatever, and everyone looked over, they all seen the smoke, they all kind of like looked at each other, nobody was freaking out, nobody was panicked, so they all just went back to their work. Again, like, critical thinking would say, like, there's fucking smoke coming from there, buddy. But the reassurance from looking around and seeing everybody else just back to work, they did the same. There was an incident. This wasn't really a social experiment, but it led to the investigation of a different one, where there was a lady. I want to say New York, but I could be wrong. Don't noose me on the place. Where she was in front of one of those big apartment complexes and stuff, and she was stabbed right in the, I don't know if it was exactly in the stairwell or if it was in the courtyard, but in a spot where everyone could see, right? And one of those big places where, and apparently I think they said there was like 20 or 30 people who were confirmed, like, looking out the window, watching this woman, I think it was, get stabbed. And I think she was, I don't even know how many times, a lot of times. And, she was screaming, all this, obviously, and everyone had their lights on, everyone's in their window, there was a bunch of people. They looked after, not one call was made to the police, because everyone just assumed someone else was going to do it. Everyone just sat there and watched the show. So there are plenty of examples of this in real life going on when you actually know what you're looking for and you look for these things all the time.
Against the grain requires more than intelligence. It requires integrity and courage. And yet history shows us that progress has always come from those who dared to think differently. Galileo, Darwin, Nietzsche, Martin Luther King, they were all rejected, ridiculed, or attacked for their ideas. But they thought anyway, they spoke anyway, and their willingness to challenge the collective ignorance of their time shaped the world we live in today. But make no mistake, there is a cost. To think critically in a society that punishes doubt is an act of rebellion. You risk being misunderstood, ostracized, even hated, but you also gain something invaluable: clarity, self-respect, and the quiet power that comes from knowing that your beliefs are yours, not programmed into you. Let's bring this closer to home. Why do so many of us feel lost, anxious, or unfulfilled, even with access to more information and technology than any generation before? The answer lies not in what we have, but in what we've lost. And one of the greatest losses is the habit of inner dialogue, the ability to sit with a question, explore it, and allow truth to emerge through reflection. We've outsourced our thinking to machines, to media, to public opinion, but no algorithm can tell you what is true for you. No trending topic can replace your inner voice, and no mass movement can substitute for the quiet certainty of a well-examined belief. So what?
The one thing I'll say he's wrong, I agree with him pretty much almost fully on that. The one thing you're wrong on, in my opinion at least, personal opinion, we got spell check for a reason, okay? I hated grammar. Again, I said I was a good reader. I hate grammar. We got spell check for a reason. Let's just use it. Problems. I mean, it's there to solve a problem. Let it solve the problem. Why are we like trying to redesign and fight a wheel? Let the wheel be a wheel.
What can we do? We can start by cultivating awareness. Awareness of our mental habits. Awareness of the sources we consume. Awareness of when we're thinking and when we're simply reacting. One powerful practice is metacognition, thinking about our thinking. Ask yourself, what's influencing my opinion right now? Am I open to being wrong? Am I engaging with this idea or just absorbing it passively? Another is the deliberate practice of dialectical thinking, the ability to hold two opposing ideas in tension while exploring them. This is not just intellectual flexibility, it's mental strength. It allows you to go beyond binaries, beyond us versus them, and into the realm where real understanding is born. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "To understand the immeasurable, the mind must be extraordinarily quiet, still. That stillness, so rare in our age, is where the seeds of wisdom grow." But let us also speak plainly. Critical thinking is not something you acquire overnight. It is a discipline. It requires reading, not just headlines, but books, full arguments, and nuanced thought. It requires listening, not just to those you agree with, but especially to those you don't. It requires humility, the kind that accepts uncertainty as part of the path, and above all, it requires the rejection of intellectual laziness. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If everyone around you believes something without question, that's your cue to pause. Not to rebel automatically, but to investigate honestly. In a time when ignorance is loud and confidence is often mistaken for competence, thinking deeply is not just a personal virtue, it's a public service. Because the future of any society depends not on the volume of its opinions, but on the quality of its thought. And the most powerful change begins not with mass movements, but with one person who chooses to think clearly in a world that doesn't. In the final part of this journey, we will reveal the most important truth of all.
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it.
So, I was trying to mark this for the end here, but since we had an ad right there, I'll just say it. Say, even in Canadian terms and stuff, like, I'll fully admit it, stuff. I know what side I'm pretty much, or I know what side I voted for, and I know why. I knew their policy. I had a very good idea of it. One thing I did try to look for, though, a lot before the elections was the other side's policy. I wanted to hear their speech. I wanted to see, like, what are you actually planning? Show me a headline, like, show me something structured here. Show me something. I really wanted to genuinely see it. Because I was like, I love playing devil's advocate. If there's something I could run defense on, I'll run it. The problem is I couldn't really find anything. And despite trying, and that's kind of the issue though nowadays, is we can always say, like, try to look at the other side's point of view and stuff, but we're also at a point in society where one side almost doesn't even have a point of view anymore. They don't even know what they're doing, essentially.
More reason why critical thinking is disappearing, and what you can do to not only resist this tide, but to become a light for others. What you're about to hear could change the way you see your mind, your relationships, and your role in shaping the world. At the heart of this entire crisis, beneath the digital noise, the failing institutions, the cultural polarization, there is something even more insidious. The real reason critical thinking is disappearing is not because people are incapable of it, but because they are afraid of what it might reveal. To think critically is to risk everything that gives us psychological safety, our identity, our beliefs, our tribe. And for many, those things are too precious to question. We live in a time when identity has become sacred. People define themselves by their opinions, their affiliations, their ideologies. To challenge an idea is now seen as a personal attack, but this is precisely the illusion that destroys thought, that we are our ideas. You are not your political party. You are not your religion. You are not your social group. You are a human being with the capacity to evolve, to learn, and to change. And that journey of evolution begins the moment you detach your worth from your current beliefs. The final and most important truth is this: critical thinking is not just an intellect.
Real quick, you guys still friends with the same social group you had in high school? I'm sure, I guess depending on the age of whoever's watching this, but I mean, just think about all these different milestones in your life and how many people stayed in your life since then.
Spiritual skill. It is a spiritual act. It is the act of honoring truth over comfort, growth over certainty, and freedom over approval. It is the quiet decision to live with your eyes open, even when the light burns. Because once you start thinking critically, you begin to see the structures that surround you, the systems of manipulation, the algorithms of control, the masks people wear. And it can be overwhelming, it can even be painful, but it is real. And reality, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only foundation upon which true freedom can be built. As philosopher and psychologist Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And yet, facing our inner world, our unconscious motives, our inherited beliefs, our cognitive traps, is the very essence of thinking. Critical thinking is not just about questioning the world, it's about questioning yourself. It's about asking, why do I believe what I believe? Where did this idea come from? What parts of me are afraid to let go of it? When you ask those questions honestly, a new world opens. Not just a world of knowledge, but of wisdom. And wisdom is what our society is starving for. In a culture addicted to quick answers, wisdom invites deeper questions. In a system built on noise, wisdom offers silence. In an era of mass conformity, wisdom dares to be free. This is your invitation, not just to think, but to wake up, to stop living as a product of your environment and start becoming the architect of your mind. Because no school, no system, no social media platform will do this for you. The responsibility is yours alone. And when you rise to it, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see with clarity. You begin to feel what it's like to live in alignment with truth. Not borrowed truth, not popular truth, but your own hard-earned truth. You begin to notice when manipulation is being used against you. You start seeing the difference between information and propaganda, between education and indoctrination, between connection and performance. And most importantly, you begin to lead. Not with noise, not with ego, but with depth. You become a light in a dark room, a voice of calm in a storm of outrage, a grounded thinker in a world of reactionaries. This is what the world needs now, more than ever. Not louder voices, not sharper arguments, but deeper minds. Minds that are willing to sit in complexity. Minds that are willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Minds that are no longer seeking to win debates, but to understand reality. If you want to change the world, start by changing the way you think. Not because it's easy, not because it's popular, but because it's right. The rise of collective stupidity is not a cause, it's a symptom. Though a symptom of fear, of fatigue, of a world too distracted to look inward. But every act of thinking clearly pushes back against that tide. Every moment you pause to reflect instead of react. Every time you ask a question instead of assuming the answer. Every time you choose clarity over comfort, you reclaim your power. So as we end this journey, remember, the most revolutionary thing you can do in this moment is not to shout, not to conform, not to repeat, but to think. Let the others sleepwalk through slogans and screens. Let them trade their freedom for validation. But not you. You are awake now. And once you awaken, you can never go back. If this message resonated with you, share it. Not because it's trendy, but because it's necessary. Leave a comment with your reflections, your doubts, your insights, because critical thinking...
Well, I think that's the end of that one there, guys. But that was a good video. I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, I never watched that one before, so but I thought it would fit the topic we were going on pretty good. So that was definitely a good video. Should we give it a like and all? And we will get the link posted in the description here. We got just some final thoughts on it though, guys. It's pretty much like I said, it's okay to be a bit egotistical, I feel like, at times and stuff like that, but stay humble. Even Albert Einstein would have easily been humble enough to say he did not know everything, and there's no way he ever would have in his entire lifetime. Give him 2-3 times the normal human life, let him live 300 years, he still never would have figured everything out, and even he knew that. So I think that's something we all have to keep in mind, and I definitely do. But that doesn't have to stop you. Try to learn as much as you can. Just because you're never going to learn it all doesn't mean like, oh, we should just give up. No. Keep trying. Try to improve. And I know I say this all the time to people I talk to and stuff. Once you see the light in this, everything changes. Everything changes. It's just being able to get people to see the light is the challenge, right? So if you guys took anything from today, if you liked it or you disagree, you think people are not, or you think they are getting more critical thinkers, then leave your comments down in the comment section. If not, leave a like, subscribe if you liked it and all that, share with your guys' friends, and hope you guys have a great, safe day. Catch you guys for the next one, and I'll apologize for today. Again, I'm just really under the weather. I'm not gonna lie, my brain's like, bleh. So I threw every last bit into me to pump today out. So I apologize for kind of the stuttery bit and stuff like that. But hopefully tomorrow will be a little bit better. But yeah, anyways, you guys stay safe. Have a great one. Catch you tomorrow for Halloween.